Wednesday the 6th of August, and Celtic fans are waking up to a month that's shaping up to be absolutely pivotal, both on the pitch and behind the scenes. With fixture decisions, transfer frustrations, and growing pressure around squad depth, the club enters a critical stretch where every choice made now could have ripple effects across the entire season. Let's start with the decision that's got plenty of people talking: Celtic not postponing the Premiership fixture against Livingston. Now, the SPFL had given clubs involved in European qualifiers the chance to reschedule league matches, and while Rangers, Aberdeen, and Hibernian all took up that option, Celtic have decided to stick to their original date. It's a bold move. It's a decision that says quite clearly, we back our squad. Brendan Rodgers and his staff must feel confident that they've got enough depth to rotate and still get the job done domestically, even with a Champions League playoff tie hanging in. The balance. Now, from a supporter's perspective, especially those traveling from Ireland or further afield, this is probably a welcome move. Let's be honest, nobody enjoys planning a full trip to Glasgow only to have the game bumped to a random Wednesday night. So in that sense, it's a fan-friendly call. But it also sends a message about mentality. Celtic are choosing to keep momentum to avoid disruption and to rely on the strength and flexibility of the group. Whether that confidence is well placed, well, that's something we'll find out very, very soon. So with that Livingston match staying put, we've got full and packed August. 6 games in the space of 3 weeks, and none of them are throwaways. The run begins with Aberdeen this Sunday, a lunchtime kickoff that's already confirmed for live broadcast. Then a bit of a rarity, a Friday night fixture under the lights at Celtic Park as Falkirk visit for the Premier Sports Cup clash. That one kicks off at 7:45, and honestly, having that game on a Friday might just be a blessing in disguise, because it gives Celtic a few extra days to prepare for the most important tie of the month, the Champions League playoff. The first leg of that European tie is scheduled for Wednesday the 20th. Opponent still to be confirmed. It'll be either Slovan Bratislava or KA of Iceland, but the time's locked in at 8 p.m. Celtic Park time. Then only a few days later, it's back to the Premiership with Livingston on Saturday the 23rd. 3 p.m. kickoff still at home. And not long after that is the second leg of the playoff on Tuesday the 26th. If the opponent is Slovan, expect another 8 p.m. under the lights. But if it's KA, the kickoff might come a bit earlier because of the time zone difference. Potentially as early as 4 p.m. Celtic Park time. That then leads directly into one of the biggest dates on the calendar, the first Glasgow derby of the season away at Ibrox on Sunday the 31st. No need to hype that one. Everyone knows what's at stake. It's live on Sky, of course, and could already be shaping up as a massive tone setter for the rest of the league campaign. So that's 6 matches in just over 3 weeks. Domestic and European. High stakes across the board. And that's before we even talk about the transfer window, which, to put it mildly, has been testing the patience of supporters. Let's talk about that now, because the frustration is real, and it's been building for weeks. But before we dive into the transfer anxiety, there was some movement yesterday, and Jamai Simpson Pewsy has officially joined the club, taking the number 4 shirt last worn by Lager Bielka. The announcement didn't come with much fanfare. His first interview was a pretty standard affair, nothing that set the world alight. But what matters now is what he does on the pitch. Brendan Rodgers has praised his pace, his defensive instincts, and his ability to start attacks. All things that, if you've watched even a few clips of him, seem to check out. He's quick, aggressive, not afraid to step forward and pass. The question now is, how quickly can he settle? And more importantly, what's the plan for him? Is he here to be a starter alongside Carter Vickers, or is this another project? It's a player, someone who adds depth but doesn't disrupt the status quo. There's a lot of noise on both sides. Some say he's too raw, too inexperienced. He's only 19 and has barely played senior football. But others are looking at his pedigree. This is a player developed at Manchester City, highly rated, brought in on a deal that suggests he's more than just a body to fill the bench. And there's a comparison that keeps popping up: Jason Deja. Back in 2014, Deja came in on loan from City, having played even less senior football than Simpson Pewsy has, and absolutely thrived. That's the template Celtic are hoping to repeat. But that's only going to work if he's given a chance. And if he delivers. What his arrival does do immediately is add a bit more competition to the centre-back options. Liam Scales is still in the mix, as is Austin Trusty, and having Simpson Pewsy around might just push everyone to another level. There's also Dane Murray, though. He's a bit further down the pecking order. Rodgers said just a few days ago that JSP, as some fans are already calling him, is the final central defender signing this summer. So that's the 5 we're going with. It's a group that has some promise, but also a fair few questions. Marks. Beyond the centre backs, though, it's clear Celtic still have serious gaps to fill. And the biggest one, the attacking third. Right now, the right wing and centre forward positions are crying out for top-level reinforcements. Let's not sugarcoat it. The options there simply aren't good enough. Yang has shown flashes, but isn't consistent. The striker position lacks a clear nailed-on starter that fans feel truly confident in. And on the left, even with Tierney's arrival, there's still the need for another wide player who can offer a real threat going forward. It's not a full squad rebuild as needed. Far from it. The midfield is looking strong. Goalkeeper sorted. Right back, no issues there. Even the defense, as we said, is now taking shape. But those forward areas, those are the ones that make or break a campaign. If the club gets it right, if they land a proper right winger and a goal scorer, then suddenly the whole picture changes. Suddenly the squad looks balanced, dangerous, ready to compete on multiple fronts. But if they don't, then all the hard work behind the scenes, all the fine margins in those European qualifiers, all the domestic pressure, it becomes that much harder. There's also a deeper frustration at play, one that's less about individuals and more about process. The club in recent windows has built a reputation for being slow to act. Deals drag on, priorities shift. And fans are left watching rival clubs strengthen while Celtic still appear to be negotiating personal terms. That's where a lot of the tension is coming from. The feeling that we've got 2 massive Champions League matches coming up and the squad right now doesn't feel fully ready. It's not doom and gloom. The season's not over. But it's hard to shake the sense that Celtic should have been aiming to complete their business by the start of European qualifiers, not scrambling for answers in the final days of August. That's a mentality shift the club still needs. To embrace, finish strong in the transfer market by all means, but don't start late. We've seen it before. Late signings can be hit or miss. Last season, we spent over £18 million on deadline day. Some players worked out, others didn't. And the year before that, we signed squad players early and left the major moves until the very end. Again, mixed results. This summer, the numbers are lower so far, just over £3.5 million spent. But that figure is slightly misleading. Kieran Tierney and Benji Negron have both come in on deals that were financially smart, especially considering their actual value in the market. That's good business. That's efficient. But it also highlights the problem outside of those two. The rest of the signings haven't yet convinced Rodgers. Names like Amura, Osmond and Yamada have barely featured. And that leaves us asking, how many of these were club targets rather than Rodgers picks? It's the kind of internal disconnect that can hold a team back. And fans feel it. You can sense it in the conversations, the match day chatter, the comments online. People aren't panicking, not yet, but they are restless. And understandably so. What Celtic need now more than ever is clarity. Clarity on who's coming. Clarity on what the plan is. Clarity on how this team intends to compete both in Scotland and in Europe. Because let's be honest, we've been here before. This time, last year we were having nearly identical conversations. Slow starts questions about depth late business. And by the end of the season, it all came together. We got through it. But that's not a guarantee. That's not a strategy. The days ahead are crucial. The window's still open. The budget is there. Not massive, but enough to make 2 or 3 serious moves. If the board gets it right, it could be heading into that Champions League playoff with real belief. If they don't, we'll be asking the same questions in September that we're asking now, only with far more at stake. So here we are on the edge of something that could go either way. There's a sense of expectation that's impossible to ignore, because deep down everyone knows this is more than just another transfer window. It's not just about filling gaps. It's about sending a message to the fans, to the league, under whoever we draw in Europe, that Celtic aren't just showing up, they're building something capable of going further, pushing harder, and not settling for domestic dominance alone. And yet, as things stand, there's a real danger of letting that moment pass. The strange thing is you can almost feel the pattern repeating itself. We get the early murmurs, the initial signings that seem promising enough. Then comes the lull. Weeks go by with no movement. the noise dies down, the speculation loses its buzz, and people start to wonder if that's it. Until right at the end, we throw money at last-minute deals, rush through the paperwork, and hope it clicks. And sometimes it does. Sometimes the late arrivals hit the ground running, but sometimes, more often than we'd like, they don't. It's not about panicking. It's about planning, and planning ahead means recognizing the size of the opportunity in front of us. This Champions League playoff isn't just another fixture on the calendar. It's a gateway. Get through it, and you guarantee not just European prestige, but also serious revenue. The kind of money that allows you to take bigger swings in the market to attract a higher caliber of player and to avoid being reactive every summer. But go into that tie undercooked, missing the pieces everyone knows you need, and suddenly you're playing catch up from the first whistle. And that's why there's so much attention on those attacking positions. We've talked about right wing and striker, and it can't be overstated. These are not luxury additions. They are absolutely necessary if this squad wants to reach its potential. You can't challenge in Europe or even dominate domestically if you're thin in the final third. And right now, that's exactly where Celtic look vulnerable. It's not about blaming individuals. There's effort, there's talent, but there's also a ceiling. And unless new signings arrive to lift that ceiling, we're going to hit it sooner rather than later. What's most frustrating is that the need for a right winger has been obvious since January. It was the glaring issue during the second half of last season, and yet as we enter one of the most important months of the campaign, it's still unresolved. How is that acceptable? How has it taken this long to identify, pursue, and secure the type of player who can make a difference there? It's baffling, especially when you hear Brendan Rodgers, who's no stranger to high-level football, openly express how crucial these additions are. And yet the silence from the club has been deafening. There's also a growing concern around the dynamic between Rodgers and the recruitment team, because for all the talk of backing the manager, a few of these summer signings don't feel like his choices. They feel like club decisions. Players brought in with long-term resale value in mind rather than immediate impact. And listen, there's nothing wrong with planning for the future, but when you're about to play a Champions League playoff and your best attacking options are still hypotheticals, it's fair to question the priorities. And all of this has a knock-on effect. You can see it in the atmosphere around the support. There's still backing for Rodgers. There's faith, there's belief, but it's being tested. The goodwill only stretches so far when the progress on the pitch doesn't reflect ambition off it. Fans want to believe there's a coherent plan, that what's happening behind closed doors is calculated, deliberate forward thinking. But when you're 2 weeks from one of the biggest games of the season and still scrambling for signings, it doesn't feel like that. You also can't ignore the emotional fatigue this creates. Every summer becomes a cycle. Hope, frustration, panic relief, reset. That's draining. And it builds this weird sense of deja vu where supporters start bracing for disappointment even before anything's happened. That's a dangerous place to be. Because football is emotional. You want fans to feel connected, excited, proud. Not like they're constantly holding their breath waiting for the club to finally act like the giant it claims to be. And let's not forget what's already happened this window. 7 signings, some decent bits of business, sure. Getting Tierney back, adding depth in goal and at centre back. But not one of those arrivals has properly answered the questions in the forward line. That's what people are clinging to now. The hope that there's a second wave of signings still to come and that this window like last year ends with a bang rather than a whimper. But hope isn't strategy. And with each passing day, that hope starts to feel more like wishful thinking. It also doesn't help when you compare it to past windows. Look at last summer. Over £30 million spent, our biggest outlay ever if the numbers are accurate. And yet over 18 million of that came on deadline day. That's not necessarily a disaster. Some of those players came in and contributed. But it's high risk. It's reactive. And it leaves no room for error. If you get it wrong, there's no time to fix it. And that's the situation Celtic are flirting with again right now. Another window defined by what happens in the final 48 hours instead of what was done early enough to actually help in Europe. Let's say, for argument's sake, the club does go out and spends another around 7 or 8 million before the end of the window. Maybe on a striker, maybe on a right winger. That still might not be enough if it comes too late to help with the playoff. And by that point, even if you qualify, you're left scrambling to integrate players during the first few weeks of the group. Stage is the same cycle every year. So what does success look like from here? It's not just about how much money is spent. It's about who comes in, how quickly they arrive, and whether they actually solve problems. Because that's what fans want more than anything. Solutions. Real tangible improvements. Players who don't just pad the bench, but actually push the starting 11 to a higher level. If Celtic can land even 2 of those, a clinical striker and a proper right winger, the entire outlook of the season shifts. And yet it feels like we're still waiting for the first domino to fall. Meanwhile, Rodgers continues to work with what he's got. And credit to him, he's managing the group well. There's belief within the camp. There's cohesion, and there are clear tactical ideas. We saw it again last weekend when Kieran Tierney's presence on the left added a real drive and energy, especially in the first half. His role is clear. He's not being asked to invert or float inside like some of his predecessors. He's doing what he does best, overlapping, bombing forward, stretching the pitch. Traditional fullback stuff. And it worked. On the other side, Alistair Johnston is still tucking in when the ball's on the left, almost becoming a central midfielder. It's not a full inversion, but it's close. And Johnston himself even spoke about it this week, suggesting that there's room for both fullbacks to stay relatively wide and allow the midfield to find that extra number through other means. It's an evolution of the system. A recognition that strengths lie in different places. And it's one that will only get more effective if, and it's a big if, the club brings in a top-tier right winger to take advantage of those isolations that Johnston's movement creates. Because that's where the margins are. That's what separates a good team from a great one. You can have all the tactical tweaks in the world, but if the personnel isn't right, if the quality in key areas isn't there, the system collapses under pressure. Celtic have the foundations. Now they need the finishing touches. And they can't afford to wait much longer to make that happen. And for all the complaints, for all the worries, there's still something undeniably exciting about what lies ahead. Because this isn't a club in crisis. It's a club on the edge of something. Whether that's frustration or fulfillment depends entirely on what happens next. There's time. Not much, but enough. Enough to fix the flaws. Enough to give Rodgers the tools he needs. Enough to walk into that playoff with confidence instead of concern. But that time is slipping. Every hour that passes without movement ramps up the pressure. Every day without a new face in training feels like another opportunity missed. And when you've been through as many of these windows as Celtic fans have, you know how quickly optimism can turn to anxiety. That's why the next couple of weeks matter so much. That's why people are so invested. Not just because they want signings, but because they want to believe again. Believe that this team can compete. Believe that the board understands the stakes. Believe that the club they love is aiming as high as they are. And the truth is, it's all still within reach. The players are there. The money is there. The manager is ready. The fixtures are lined up. All that's missing now is action. Real, decisive, ambitious action. Not in September, not on deadline day. Now. Because if Celtic get it right from this point forward, if they nail these final moves, they won't just be ready for Livingston or Aberdeen or even Ibrox. They'll be ready for Europe, ready to take that next step, and maybe ready to deliver something special. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Rumors are beginning to swirl once again around Celtic Park, and this time, it's not about a new signing or a managerial change. Instead, former fan favorite Jota has allegedly broken his silence in what many are calling a bombshell revelation concerning his exit from the Glasgow Giants. Though nothing has been officially confirmed, close sources claim the Portuguese winger has privately expressed deep frustration and a sense of betrayal by the club's hierarchy. According to those familiar with the situation, Jota feels promises made during his contract renewal talks were never honored, particularly regarding his role, long-term future, and ambitions within the club. The alleged betrayal has sent shockwaves through circles close to the player, with murmurs suggesting he might speak publicly soon. If proven accurate, this could mark one of the most damning critiques of Celtic's internal politics in recent years. Insiders suggest the winger's loyalty was taken for granted, with assurances about his development, European exposure, and status within the squad quietly swept aside once he put pen to paper. While the club remains tight-lipped, fans and pundits alike are beginning to question what really went on behind the scenes. Was this simply a misunderstanding, or is there a deeper fracture within the Parkhead corridors of power? Whispers among those close to the Celtic dressing room hint at tensions that had been bubbling long before Jota's unexpected departure. Although the official line from the club painted a picture of mutual respect and professional parting of ways, emerging speculation now paints a far less harmonious backdrop. According to individuals close to the winger, promises made by the Celtic board included making him a focal point of future campaigns, supporting his growth with high-level European fixtures, and keeping key players around him to maintain competitiveness. However, those same voices now claim that the reality quickly diverged from these commitments, with key squad members being sold off and tactical decisions leaving Jota sidelined in crucial moments. The betrayal he allegedly feels is said to run deep, with one confidant even describing his trust as being shattered. Some observers believe that Jota's initial enthusiasm for the club and its passionate support quickly gave way to disillusionment once it became clear that boardroom politics overruled footballing integrity. It is rumored that the winger has kept a detailed record of the broken promises, fueling speculation of a potential tell-all interview or documentary. With emotions still raw and questions swirling, many now wonder how many other players may have been similarly misled behind the Parkhead scenes. In the midst of this swirling controversy, fans have taken to online forums and social media to voice both support for Jota and frustration toward the Celtic board. While some remain skeptical, arguing that professional football is often riddled with difficult compromises, others believe this could be the tip of the iceberg. The idea that Celtic's boardroom figures might be making grand promises to secure player loyalty, only to renege on those assurances, has sparked fresh concern over the club's long-term strategy and credibility. Many supporters are now asking whether similar treatment was behind other high-profile exits in recent years. The wider Celtic community is no stranger to internal unrest, but the emotional attachment to Jota, coupled with his consistent performances and connection to the supporters, makes this alleged betrayal particularly painful for many. Adding to the intrigue, sources close to the player hint at a strained relationship with certain decision makers at the club, perhaps pointing to deeper personal frictions that were never made public. The possibility of broken trust within the club's inner workings is creating ripples far beyond the training ground, potentially damaging future negotiations with key players. If these rumors are substantiated, they could provoke a wave of backlash against the leadership accused of prioritizing business over loyalty. Adding another layer of drama to the unfolding saga, some insiders have hinted that Jota was actively discouraged from speaking out during his time at the club, with veiled warnings about the consequences of disrupting the Celtic image. If true, this would suggest a calculated effort to manage player narratives and suppress dissent, a claim that, if exposed, could undermine the very ethos the club has long prided itself on. Reports now indicate that Jota, who had remained publicly respectful in interviews during his tenure, was in fact privately seething over what he saw as manipulation and false assurances. Friends of the winger allege that he often voiced his concerns to close confidants, even considering legal options at one point, though ultimately choosing a quieter exit. Some sources suggest that Jota's departure was far more abrupt than initially believed, spurred by a final breach of trust that left him with no option but to walk away. The winger's silence since leaving has only fueled curiosity, with rumors of exclusive interviews, podcast tell-alls, or even a revealing documentary growing louder by the week. Whatever the outcome, these murmurs have already unsettled the Parkhead faithful and reignited scrutiny over how Celtic manages its top talents and communicates internally. As speculation grows, the Celtic board has so far remained noticeably silent, refusing to address the alleged comments or the increasing fan unrest. However, if Jota does choose to speak publicly, the consequences could be far-reaching. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild, and in a club as historically rich and emotionally invested as Celtic, perceived betrayal can ignite long-standing tensions. Should more players come forward with similar experiences, the board may find itself facing an internal reckoning. Beyond Jota's individual case, this entire situation raises difficult questions about modern football and the balance of power between players and club executives. Is Celtic at risk of becoming a club that speaks of family and loyalty while practicing cold corporate maneuvering behind closed doors? Fans are now demanding transparency and accountability, urging those at the helm to step forward and clarify their stance before the rumor mill spirals further out of control. Until then, the whispers surrounding Jota's departure will continue to grow louder, casting a long and unsettling shadow over what should be a promising season ahead. Whether this is merely smoke or a sign of deeper fires burning within Celtic, Park remains to be seen, but one thing is certain, the silence won't hold forever. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.